third meeting of the budget review, and remind myself here to silence your cell phone. And I don't see any guests in the audience that need recognition, but we'll go ahead and do the approval of minutes and call the roll. So I guess we'll call the roll first.
Senator Mills.
Here.
Senator Thomas. Representative Brown.
Here.
Representative Dossett. Representative Gentry. Representative Imes. Representative Johnson. Representative Palumbo. Representative Raymond. Representative Tate. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Representative Bowling. Representative Bray. Representative Hale. Representative Petrie. Representative Bratcher. Representative Bridges. Senator Nemes.
Present.
Representative Fleming. Representative Freeland presiding.
All right. Did you get Representative Imes? Okay. All right. And I don't think we quite have a quorum. I think we're one shy. Is that right? So, okay. Do we need to wait to approve the minutes then, or can we do that? Or, okay. We'll just wait. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. And glad to have with us this morning former Senator, retired Senator Will Schroeder with us, and also the Commissioner of the Department of Criminal Investigations, Richard Ferretti, joining us this morning, talking about the Body Armor Grant Program. That's from House Bill 6 this past session, and I'll let you gentlemen introduce yourselves and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will Schroeder, Senior Counsel for the Attorney General's Office. Today's presentation, Commissioner Ferretti is going to largely present most of it, but I never want to miss the opportunity to come over and say hi to old friends, and thanks again for having us.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me this morning. My name's Richard Ferretti. I'm the chairman of the Department of Criminal Investigations. DCI, as we call it, is kind of the law enforcement wing of the Attorney General's Department office. We investigate all sorts of matters, public corruption. We kind of concentrate on a lot of drug crimes and crimes against children in our Special Victims Unit and things like that. So, we are pleased to be able to talk to you this morning about the Body Armor Grant Program. This is new for us. Like I said, we are a law enforcement entity, so running a program like this is something different. But I'll tell you, we've been running this program for a few months here, and it just went live in July. And the brief presentation. We'll show you some of the statistics that we have as of Monday on the program, and it's been very enthusiastically received by a lot of the law enforcement out here in the Commonwealth. And at the end of my slide deck, there's a 30-second video, if it works, of just a body armor shoot that we had down at the Bowling Green Police Academy here 2 weeks ago. And so I think you'll see from the short 30-second video clip a lot of enthusiasm around the program. The Body Armor Grant Program, as the slide says, $5 million in the first year, $10 million in the second year for the purchase of body armor, duty weapons, ammo, tasers, and body-worn cameras. The name of the program is Body Armor Grant Program, so although it covers all those different areas, we are initially going to concentrate on body armor and protecting the officers of the Commonwealth. I was surprised to learn the statistic that 20% of the officers here in Kentucky either have expired vests or no vests at all. I was recently in a in-service class of about 40 officers, and the vast majority of the officers were old retread guys such as myself, and about 80% of the officers in the class had body armor that was double digits in years, or they bought it themselves, coming back to be school resource officers and things like that. So that is strictly unacceptable to have here in the Commonwealth, where you have to buy your own or have none, or it's old expired armor. So this program is going to be fantastic, and that's what our priority is to concentrate on, is to closing that 20% gap that we have with officers having the old armor. So that's our priority. Once we accomplish that, then we can go on the extra stuff, such as ballistic plates, helmets, and even shields that they can carry in their cruisers and things like that. But the priority right now in this first 6 months to years is to close that 20% gap and make sure everybody, number one, has a ballistic vest. Well, we're law enforcement, we're state government. We have a lot of paperwork and processes, and we don't, as a state agency, we do not want to slow down this process. So there was already an existing program under another state agency that kind of required each agency to apply for a grant and a lot of paperwork when they put in for a vest. And absolutely that is not what we're doing. So once you go on our website, you click a button, and basically an agency will apply, and you tell us the officer's name, you give us their police officer certification number, and that's how we track the vest, and basically tell us the number of officers that need vests, and that's simply all we have to do. So we track the body armor by the officer, we're not by the agency. So in today's world of law enforcement, officers don't always stay with the same agency. So we want the vest, the body armor, to stay with the officer if they go from agency to agency, not to stay with the agency. Body armor is a tailored product. The officer has to get fitted for it, so it makes no use to stay with the agency. They just end up throwing it away. They can't reissue it to somebody else. So that's how this program is. And body armor is good for 5 years. That's the National Institute of Justice guidelines for it. The body armor is good for 5 years. Vests are in the heat, in the cold. They're in and out of the vehicles all the time. So that's pretty much what it is. Every 5 years, they want the body armor redone. A second big point about this is that the agency must have a mandatory wear policy. The two largest agencies in Kentucky, Kentucky State Police, Louisville Metro PD, they do not have a mandatory wear policy. They have a recommended wear policy, but they don't have a mandatory wear policy. So another purpose of this is to get the officers to wear the vest. If we're going to be good stewards of the taxpayer money and spend all this money on it, we want the officers to wear the vest. And honestly, the most likely scenario to happen is that they're probably going to be in some sort of vehicle accident or something like that, where the body armor will help save them from injuries in an accident. So we've had several agencies that apply that's already submitted their policies, and we kicked it back saying, listen, you have to change to a mandatory wear, and they go, you're right. And so they've changed their policies. So it's our hope that we can get a lot more agencies to change their wear policies to make it a mandatory wear policy, because that's just being a good steward. Where we are in the application process right now is that if they don't, they're applying if they don't have a vest, or it's expired, or if it expires before the end of the year. That's the applications we're taking right now. Pretty simple. Just go to our public-facing website for the Attorney General's office, click on that little button right there, and it takes you right in the process, and the agency can upload everything. We review it in-house at DCI. We're working with our partner Galls right now. Galls is headquartered in Lexington, Kentucky, and Galls will go out all over the state, and they'll size the officers to find out exactly the size of the vest they need. It'll generate a quote. That comes back to us. We approve it. We look at, make sure they have a mandatory wear policy and that we're tracking their certification numbers. We click it back out. Galls goes directly to the manufacturer, and it gets placed with the manufacturer. The most popular manufacturer right now with Kentucky law enforcement is a company called Point Blank, and they're based out of Pompano Beach, Florida. Their reps have come up, and we've spoken with them, and they're talking about it's about a 60 day from once they receive the order to that vest gets received back by the agency. So that's pretty fast, looking at approximately 2 months. And the biggest part of this is the Attorney General's office. Once we submit approved, we are no longer sitting in this process to where we can slow it down. So once we hit send, it's going to go directly from the Galls measures them. It goes from the manufacturer direct to the agency. As a state entity, we do not want to slow the process at all. We want the armor to get to the officers as soon as possible. And of course, then we obviously pay Galls. A few statistics: 68 agencies. As I said, right now we're concentrating on body armor, the helmets, the plates, the shields, the tasers. Once we get everything, once we close that gap, then we'll start looking at all these other items. Over 253 vests, folks, have been sized and vests have been ordered right now. So in less than a month, exactly a month, from July 15th to August 16th, 253 officers have been measured and it's been sent out to the manufacturer in 1 month. So it's pretty good. Just a quick map that we did of some of the different agencies around the Commonwealth, a lot in your districts, as you see, especially out west. The next few slides are just some of the agencies, but the typical vest is approximately $900, depending on what level of body armor they're ordering. We anticipate with the $15 million that you gave us, once we get the vests, then you're going to look at some rifle plating as well, and maybe even some helmets for the officers out on the streets. We're looking at approximately $2,000 per officer for everything they need to protect themselves. A lot of school districts in here, from school resource officers, even UKPD, U of L, state entities such as Kentucky, ABC, even insurance fraud. Right now, that's what it's looking at costing of just in the first month of what we've taken in orders. Obviously, that will go up once we receive more orders. 2 weeks ago, we went down to the Kentucky Chiefs of Police Association meeting in Bowling Green, and we had Point Blank come up, and we had the chiefs come out, and I'd never been to a body armor vest shoot before, so this is actually pretty cool. So I have a 45-second video clip, if it plays, just of what we were able to show the chiefs. That's Attorney General Coleman. And, uh-oh, how do I make it play there? Anything else I need to do to make it play? I apologize. It's playing on my screen. Well, anything I need to make that play? I just clicked on a link and it was in the presentation. It took me to YouTube.
The HDMI is in, so it should play.
Yeah, it's the last slide.
Mr. Chair, as we're waiting to see if we can get this video to play, I'll just take an opportunity to say, in addition to the body armor program that we are thankful and excited to host in the Office of the Attorney General, we are also thankful for members of this committee with the budget bills. Our folks at DCI, when they came in, had a lot of outdated equipment themselves, including some of the firearms that they have, and with your help, we were able to update those. And then also importantly, within the whole office, our recruitment and retention money that recently that will start hitting, I guess, our colleagues' paychecks mid-September. But raises came through, and they've already made a significant difference. We've heard back from colleagues who were considering leaving. They love their jobs, but when other state agencies were able to offer more money, at that point it becomes a decision of what's best for your family. And thanks to the General Assembly's help, we have a lot of good, solid attorneys and other workers amongst us that now can stay and be happy in the Attorney General's office. So just take that opportunity. Thank you for that.
Yes, he's exactly right. I tell you, I met with one of my detectives on Monday who was actually looking at leaving the agency. He had been with us for 19 years, and he was looking to get his high five up, and he had other officers from other agencies, offers from other agencies. So getting the retention pay to stay was huge. He said it's absolutely going to make a difference in his life. So I can't thank you and the members of the committee enough. It's making a difference.
That's great to hear. Is the video not going to work? Okay.
Not going to work.
Maybe you can send it to us and we can see that. I'd like to see that, though.
Yes, sir.
And we do have a couple of questions, and if anyone else has any, just let us know. But Representative Bridges?
I appreciate you guys coming out and testifying, and I understand that, for body armor, I'm hearing you say it costs about $2,000 to what, and this is sort of getting out in the weeds, but what do you think the average cost to equip the average officer? And no officer is average, but just across the board on average, from state police to sheriffs to city police or whatever, what would you say the average cost for equipment is per officer?
Well, if you're just looking at just the body armor, you're looking at approximately $2,000.
Well, I understand that, but what about all the other stuff? I mean, I Googled body armor and all this other stuff, like clip holders and belts and just their uniforms and everything. Have you got any idea what, just on average, what does it cost to put an officer on the street?
I would say it would easily be double that. You look at the cost of a firearm itself, can be anywhere $800 to whatever the agency is carrying. A typical Glock is $600 to $700. Ammo, spare carriers, radio. A radio itself is, $4,000 to $7,000 for just a radio, depending on what type of system you're on and things like that. So, depending on the agency, the price can go up dramatically. But the minimum safety, $2,000. Everything else, you're looking at multiple thousands of dollars, depending on the type of equipment. Like I said, just a radio alone is a minimum of $4,000, depending. So it's very expensive, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. It helps us get an idea of what do these departments have to spend, and some of them's got 2 officers, some of them's got 20, some of them's got hundreds, and that just helps us get an idea of what the actual cost is for these. So. Thank you very much.
Well, that's the good thing about this program, is some of the chiefs told me this frees money up that they can use on training or getting other officers through the costs of the academy or other equipment that they need. So this is just something that we can take off their plate. And as I said, we're initially going to concentrate on the body armor to make sure everybody's safe, but the language of the legislation covered almost, firearms, ammo as well, tasers as well. So we'll try to take as much as that as we can off their plate to allow them to spend the money as they deemed appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Representative Johnson, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of a minor question, but I saw that some of the applications were for rifle plates. Never heard that term. What's a rifle plate?
It's just a soft body armor, a soft plate, 8x10 that goes in the front or back, and it enables an officer to survive a round from a rifle. So if you remember the shootings that we had recently in eastern Kentucky, where the officers lost their lives because it was rifle fire when they arrived at the residence. So your typical soft body armor is only going to cover handgun, and so every officer needs plates as well in there to cover all sorts of threats.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Mills?
Well, looks like our video might work, but let me ask my question real quick, and we want to see the video for sure. Just 2 things. You talked about body armor expiring. Once it expires, is it still functional, I guess is a question of mine. And then can you talk about all the other, when will you decide to move to the next step on tasers, body cams, and funding those? So do you have a time period, or is it a certain percentage of people that you're trying to get outfitted with the vest and body armor first before you move on, or what's your priorities like that?
Yes, sir. The priority is closing that 20% gap of those who have absolutely nothing or have the armor that's over the 5-year expiration. Body armor is obviously good above 5 years, but the national NIJ, National Institute of Justice standard, is 5 years. The manufacturer's warranty is only good for 5 years. They recommend that, you don't wear it past 5 years, but out of necessity, the officers in Kentucky, they have to do that. It's better than nothing, obviously. And like I said, it even helps you in auto accidents and things like that. So, but that's our initial priority. Once we close the gap, then we can look at the plating and the other items, helmets and shields. Honestly, we're probably going to look at firearms and tasers last because those are so expensive. We have to decide then, do I get a rifle for a SWAT team in Louisville or body armor for an officer in a rural area. So our priority right now is to make sure everybody's protected, and then we'll go forward with the other items.
All right. Any other questions? We got one over there. Representative, go
Thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for the presentation. You all stated that the body armor, it goes to the individual officer, and it stays with that officer, and that's how you all track it. What happens if that officer leaves the force, no longer serves in law enforcement? Do they have to turn it back in? Is it theirs to do what they want? What if they leave the state? Kentucky, we're a border state, got 7 other states. Is there any way to track any of that, or do you expect any of that to be an issue?
We don't anticipate that'll be an issue, but every time an officer moves from agency to agency, they have to go through the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council, which I'm actually a member of the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council, KLEC. So they have to apply for recertification when they go from agency to agency. So we are working with KLEC, so we will be able to track if an officer goes from agency to agency. We're tracking it by their certification number. Every officer in Kentucky is POPS certified if they go through the academy. POPS stands for Police Officer Professional Standards. By passing an academy, by getting a certain numbers of hours of in-service every year, they get an extra incentive pay to do that. So Kentucky is really, really above most other states, especially surround us. None of them get incentive pay to stay trained. And so that's how we track it, by that certification number. And so the intent is for it to stay with the officer if they're going from agency to agency. And honestly, when they go outside the Commonwealth, they contact KLEC anyways to get the history of the officer. So we'll be able to track it that way as well.
Okay. And what about a situation where they would go from, because I know you said they have to be a mandatory wear agency
Yes,
to
sir.
be able to get this. So they're currently in one, they get the body armor, then they move to one that is not I assume it just stays with them, and they'll
Yeah,
wear it as they please.
Well, that's the case, but we're going to work with every agency, and we're working with the Kentucky Chiefs Association. We're working with the Kentucky Sheriff's Association to make sure the word gets out on this, that they know that they need to have a mandatory wear policy. It's the best bet. It's better for not just the agency, but it's better for insurance rates through the Kentucky League of Cities and everything. So everybody is with us in pushing for the mandatory wear policy, but it's up to the individual agencies if they'd like to do that, however.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, how many officers are there in the Commonwealth? And then of that, how many are in the field?
Well, I don't know how many in the field, but I think there's approximately 8,000 POPS certified officers in Kentucky amongst all law enforcement agencies.
Okay, and did you say LMPD does or does not have a mandatory?
They do not have a mandatory yet.
And what's the I know it's an acting chief, Humphreys, but what's the reasoning for that?
That's their own agency policy. We've talked to them. I've talked to Commissioner Burnett at Kentucky State Police as well. And we're working with them to see if that's something that they would consider doing. We'd love to give them the money.
Yeah. Okay. I may check into that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Senator Demus?
Yes, you say the body armor goes with the officer. Is that body armor you're providing, or is that body armor that's out there? Because I know at LMPD, they borrowed equipment sometimes depending on what they were going into, like SWAT team, or if they had something that they need to go to. And also, what about undercover? And can you distinguish between the 20% on how many is outdated and how many just don't want to use it?
There will always be exceptions, undercover, things like that, people doing protective details and specialty units. So in their policy, there can be written exceptions in your policy. For example, our agency, DCI, we have a mandatory wear policy whenever you're working search warrants or you're out in the field contacting the public, things like that, you're required to wear it. But if you're sitting at if I'm sitting at my desk in the office, I'm not required to wear it. So there are exceptions that can be written into any agency's policy, and we do look at that. But the armor is to stay with the officer, and we can only cover what we fund them through the program, what they do with already their existing body armor, whether they take it back or not. But most agencies and most officers that I dealt with, they typically even keep their old expired armor. I've had guys have 4 or 5 old ballistic vests laying in the trunk of their vehicle and things like that. There's nothing really to do with the old. It's actually hard to get rid of old body armor and things like that. So, but we can only control what we are funding for the agency, sir.
All right. Not seeing any other questions. I had just one, just kind of follow up on Senator Mills' question about after this initial round is met of requests, and if there's any monies left over, how do you go about meeting those requests? Or I'm guessing departments maybe have sent in things that maybe you couldn't provide just yet in the first round, so would that be kind of how it works, or you put out more communications to the departments to let them know that there's money for guns or tasers or something of that nature?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. We've received a number of requests, as some of the slides showed, and we've told them, hey, you know what, hold off on that.
Okay.
Let us get our vest first, and then if you want to get this fancy helmet or this $2,000 shield, for your tactical team, we're all about that. We just want to make sure we have enough funding for everybody first, and that we get to the folks that's vests are expiring here in the short term. But once we hit that and close that 20% gap, then we're going to open it up to everything else. And but it's a continuing, ongoing basis. As we go forward, there are more vests that are going to expire, that come up being expired, and things like that. So we see this as it's going to continue. It's going to continue on.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we do have the video now.
Yeah. It's 1 minute long.
All right.
Oh man, do I have to do the volume on? It's all the way up on the volume. That's what happens when you have an old retired Secret Service agent touch a computer. You're lucky it doesn't blow up.
Just provide commentary on what you guys were doing.
Yeah, this is at the Bowling Green range 2 weeks ago. You see the Gauls flag, point blank armor, all different types. Level 3A, which is the highest level. That's Attorney General Coleman. He's going to shoot really close to this vest. And the vest, you see how small the vest is? That's your 3A vest, which will cover all types of handgun. And if they show it, he's putting 10 to 12 rounds in a vest, and it doesn't, there's no lethal hits on those models that they have up there at all. Rifles, okay. Yeah, but a vest, a simple light 3A body armor vest with panels in there that are ceramic. An officer on the street can take rifle rounds and survive. So we have to do our best to get this in their hands.
All right. Oh, we got one more question. Go ahead.
So that does bring up a question. So when rounds are taken by the vest, does it require replacement of the shields and okay, that's.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, if any officer gets shot in his vest, point blank flies them down to their headquarters in Pompano Beach, and they actually meet the person that manufactured their vest and signed off on their vest. They actually meet that person, and they did that earlier with earlier this year with one of the KSP officers that was shot last year. They flew him down to Florida, I believe, and he even met the officer, the individual at point blank that made his vest. So that just shows the folks at Pompano what they do is really important, and this is who it saved and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty cool.
That is cool. Well, thank you so much,
All right.
Commissioner Freddie, and thank you, Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you
having
for
us.
being
Yeah,
here, and I appreciate the presentation and good information.
we
It's
appreciate
a
it.
great program.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you're doing for our agency. It is really appreciated, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, our next meeting of the Subcommittee of General Government, Finance, Personnel, and Public Retirement will be on September 18th of this year. So if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn.